All right, good afternoon. Happy Friday, if I'm not mistaken. I'll start off with the Secretary General, who this morning at a side event on participation, human rights, and governance challenge ahead, he said that overcoming the multiple crises political leaders face requires approaches driven by unity, solidarity, and compassion. The key of reinvigorated and reimagined governance, he added, lies with truly meaningful participation of people, society, and the decisions that impact their lives. Yet, the Secretary General said that in many places around the world, participation is being denied and civic space is being crushed. A global pushback on human rights has placed participation in its crosshairs, Mr. Guterres added. The Secretary General said the call to action for human rights commits the United Nations to strengthening its partnership with civil society and ensuring the protection, promotion, and participation of human rights defenders and community leaders in our work. The Secretary General concluded with a call for participation as a critical element to strengthen societies and meet the urgency of our time. And this morning, the Deputy Secretary General spoke at the high-level event on the theme Beyond COVID-19, Public-Private Partnership for the Sustainable Development Goals as a model for building back better. Amina Mohammed said that we have seen unprecedented alliances, innovation, and achievements. She pointed to examples such as rapid migration, digital technologies, and a new generation of finance products and infrastructure, and ambitious social protection programs implemented at a scale never seen before. And I also want to flag that on Monday, after my briefing, the Deputy Secretary General will be here to brief you on the high-level meetings with heads of states and governments on financing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in the year of COVID-19 and beyond. That meeting will take place on Tuesday morning. The meeting is convened by the Prime Ministers of Canada and Jamaica, as well as the Secretary General. And as you know, the first meeting of this kind was convened on May 28th with the purpose of enabling discussion and finding concrete financing solutions to the development emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Ms. Mohammed will also brief on the ACT Accelerator COVAX facility event, which will take place on Wednesday, and she will discuss how to make solutions for the pandemic accessible to everyone. This event is convened by the Secretary General, the President of South Africa, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and the World Health Organization. And I want to add that Tuesday, late morning, early afternoon, around midday or so, the Secretary General will have a press briefing with the Prime Ministers of Canada and Jamaica after the COVID-19 Financing for Development meeting. That will be a virtual meeting only. That will be a virtual press briefing only, as the Secretary General will remain in Conference Room 8 where the meeting is taking place, but we'll share details with you on that a bit later. The Security Council held an open meeting on Sudan today. The Undersecretary General for Political and Peace-Building Affairs, Rosemary DiCarlo, said that despite the pandemic, Sudan's political transition continues to move in the right direction, but that we're also mindful of the significant work ahead. Ms. DiCarlo said that planning for the new mission in Sudan, to be known as UNITAMS, is progressing and intended to enable a new and innovative way of working, fostering maximum cooperation and integration among various UN entities. Also briefing the Council was Undersecretary General for Peace Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, and he welcomed last month's initialing of a peace agreement between the Transitional Government of Sudan, the Sudan Revolutionary Front, and the Sudan Liberation Army, Mini-Minawi, which he said was an important milestone in the often troubled history of Darfur. Nonetheless, he added, much of the work remains to ensure that the goodwill shown in the negotiating process is translated into lasting and sustainable change on the ground, stressing that the UN mission in Darfur and the UN are ready to step in and stand ready to help. And on neighboring South Sudan, our humanitarian colleagues inform us that since last July, some 625,000 people have been affected by devastating floods along the White Nile River. Humanitarian coordinator Alain Nodeu together with the South Sudan's Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, as well as the head of UN agencies and NGOs, traveled yesterday to Unity County, where they met with people who have been impacted by the floods. The UN, along with our partners, are providing food, temporary shelters, fishing kits, water purification tablets, medicine, and other supplies. To date, some 360,000 people have received assistance. We need more than $80 million for the overall flood response, including $46 million for immediate assistance to 360,000 people until the end of the year. In the meantime, the humanitarian coordinator is releasing $10 million from the South Sudan humanitarian fund for the flood response. And I have an update from the work of our peacekeeping missions in Mali and the Central African Republic. In the town of Kidal in northern Mali, the UN mission has built 3 floating platforms to help people and goods safely cross the Wadi, a riverbed that separates the Aliou district from the city center. The riverbed is the main crossing point in the city. It is usually dry, but gets flooded during rainy season. As a result, these floating platforms will contribute to improving living conditions and safety for people there. And turning to the Central African Republic, the mission continues to support the organization of the forthcoming presidential and legislative elections. Earlier this week, a meeting was organized by representatives of women's group called the Organization of Central African Women. This was done on the margins of the International Day of Peace. The women gathered to discuss the achievements of Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security, as well as the positive influence of women in conflict resolution. They also took stock of the contribution of women to last year's peace agreement and reflected on their role during difficult times, as well as the strategies to be developed by peacemakers. And earlier this week, the acting special representative in Libya, Stephane Williams, and the ambassador-designate of the European Union to Libya, José Sabadell, met with the new leadership of the General Electricity Company of Libya to discuss plans to address the country's unacceptable electricity crisis. Libyans across the country have been facing daily power outages, sometimes lasting 16 hours per day or more. The deputy chairman of the electricity company, Abdul Salem Al-Ansari, presented a plan to address the current 3,000 megawatt deficit with short-term and long-term efforts. There are more details in a press release from our friends at the UN mission in Libya. And tomorrow is the International Day for the Total Elimination of Nuclear Weapons. In his message for the day, the Secretary General said that almost 75 years since the adoption of the first General Assembly resolution committing the UN to the goal of nuclear disarmament, our world continues to live in the shadow of a nuclear catastrophe. Relationships between states possessing nuclear weapons are characterized by divisions, distrust, in the absence of dialogue, he added, as they increasingly choose to pursue strategic competition over cooperation. The danger posed by nuclear weapons are becoming more acute. The Secretary General called on the states that possess nuclear weapons to lead and to return to real good faith dialogue to restore trust, confidence, reduce nuclear risk, and take tangible steps to nuclear disarmament. Next week on Friday, the General Assembly will hold a high-level event to mark the day. And Sunday, 27th of September, is World Tourism Day. In his message for the day, the Secretary General highlighted the many millions of people around the world who rely on tourism for income, especially women and young people. He noted that tourism has suffered enormously during the pandemic, with 120 million jobs at risk. The impacts could lead to a loss between 1.5 and 2.8% of the global GDP, particularly impacting the most vulnerable countries. The Secretary General emphasized that we look to recover from this profound crisis. The safe restart of tourism is essential, not least for rural development, the focus of this year's World Tourism Day. He said that we must ensure a fair distribution of its benefits and advance a transition to a carbon-neutral, resilient tourism economy. And I need to apologize to our friends in Bolivia, Lebanon, and Sierra Leone. Yesterday, I should have announced publicly on camera that these 3 countries have made full payments to the regular budget dues, and that those payments came in over the last few days. And we are now at the happy number, or at least the good number, of 121. All right. Let's go to the chat. Well, let's go in the room, since we don't need to have a chat function. Hi, Ray.
Hi. Thank you, Stephane. There has been many new cases of COVID-19 not only in Europe, like Italy, France, but only here in New York City, in some hotspots in Brooklyn and Queens. Will this affect the current 75 UNGA?
No, I mean, we're obviously in close touch with our colleagues in the New York City government, especially the health authorities, our medical services, or I would assume almost daily touch with them. We're keeping an eye on the numbers here. But, we have so few, we really don't have anyone that is traveling into New York for this event. So the people who are coming into the building are the ones who are already living in New York. But we're obviously keeping an eye on the numbers, what the city decides to do, and how that may impact the return to the building. Okay, I actually don't see anyone in the chat. If you have any questions, open your mic or wave your hands. Excellent. This looks like a victory for me. Okay, we will turn it over to Brendan and hit him with hard questions like you just did to me. Which way are you going? This way.